All right, we're back for example 2, 0 and negative exponents, simplify. All right, let's go ahead and get started with these problems. So we have 4 to the negative 3. We know whenever we see that negative in the exponent, that is the same thing as 1 divided by the same thing, but without the negative. And we know that 1 divided by 4 to the third is the same thing as 4 times 4 times 4. Which equals 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4, I can figure that out really quick over here on the side. 4 times 6 is 24. Write the 4, carry the 2. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. Please use your brain whenever necessary. I know that I brought out that calculator for one of the first example problems. That was just to illustrate to save time for this video. But for the most part, I want you to try to use your brain and figure out what these problems equal. You can always check yourself if you need to, but always use your brain first. Use your brain first. Use your brain first. Okay, thank you, Dragon. Okay, anyway, so our answer, 1 divided by 64, 1/64. Perfect. Okay, the next one here, what do we have? 7 to the 0 power. Do you know what that's equal to? Anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. Oh man, my 1. I feel like I need a better 1 than that. There we go. 1. Perfect. Okay. Next one. Next one. What do we have? What do we have? Okay, so we have parentheses, right? -5 raised to the -4th power. Okay, there's that negative in the exponent. That's fine. That just means 1 divided by whatever this base is. Since it's in parentheses, that means the base is -5. I'm going to put that in parentheses. You're going to see why in a moment. And then to the 4th power, and now that's a positive, right? So what does this mean? Well, this means 1 over -5 times -5 times -5 times -5. Okay, that's what that means. Now be very, very careful with this one. This is the C and D, they're tricky, okay? So negative and a negative, I'm gonna figure out what the sign is. Negative times a negative is a positive, right? Negative times a negative is a positive. Perfect. Okay, so I know that my answer is gonna be positive. It's gonna be 1 over, then I just gotta figure out what all this is. So 5 times 5, what's that, 25? Times 5 is 125. Times 5, I'm pretty sure 125 times 5 is 625. Let's just figure it out real quick. 5 times 5 is 25, write the 5, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, write the 2, carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So yes, 625. So that is our answer. Perfect. Okay, now let's look at this example. Now look at these two lovely examples. Do you see them here? Look at them. They're so close. They're so close to being the same thing. But what is different? What is different? What is different? What is different? If you're thinking this one has parentheses and this one doesn't, you are exactly right. Everything is exactly the same except there's parentheses here and there's no parentheses here. This means something. These are not the same. These are different. The parentheses matter. The parentheses state that whatever this base is, the entire base is -5, and that whole thing is raised to the -4th, right? Which means that whole thing is -5 times -5 times -5 times -5. Okay, that's what this means. This means something different. This means -1 times 5 to the -4th. That's what that means. Okay, so just let it soak it in, memorize it, whatever. When you have this negative here, and you see how this -4 is right here in the exponent, the base is 5. It's not -5. Okay, here, there's parentheses, and everything inside those parentheses is raised to the -4th power. So that means the base is -5 here, raised to the -4th power. So once we flip it down, and then it's -5 times -5 times -5 times -5. And I know that these were positives and we made them just, you know that those are negatives, right? But yeah. Okay, the base is only the 5. It's not the negative. This negative is the same thing like saying -1 times 5 to the -4th. So what that means is this is -1 times It's just this base of 5 gets flipped down to the bottom, right? And this is the same thing as negative 1 times 1 over 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, right? Which equals negative 1 times 1 is just negative 1 over 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. 125 times 5, we figured it out, is 625. They are not the same answer. This is actually equal to negative 1 over 625. So when you see that negative and there's no parentheses, in your mind you have to think, hey, this is the same thing as negative 1 times 5 to the negative fourth. That negative is not a part of the base. It is only a part of the base when there are parentheses around it like this one, okay? And you can see you get different answers. So now, my friends, it is time for you to check it out. I want you to try these 4 examples. A, B, C, D, simplify them on your own. So here's my friend the pause dragon. Remind you to pause your device, work out these 4 problems. When you get done, press play and we'll talk about them together. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, let's see how you did. So we got 10 to the negative fourth, right? We know that is the same thing as 1 over 10 to the fourth power, which is the same thing as 1 over 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, which is the same thing as 1 over 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1/10,000th. Perfect. If you got that right, awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's move on to the next one. Let me use this color. So negative 2 to the negative fourth power. Notice there's parentheses. So that means that entire base, right? The negative 2, that whole thing is being raised to the negative fourth power. So you should have written this. This is the same thing as keep those parentheses to the positive fourth. Okay, okay. Which is the same thing as 1 over negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, okay. Which is equal to 1 over, okay, I like to figure out my signs first. So negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive, and then we go 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16. So if you got 1/16, woohoo, good job. All right, on to the next one. We got negative 2, the quantity raised to the negative fifth power now, and notice the parentheses, it's a parentheses party, so that whole thing is included, okay? And we know that when it's raised to the negative fifth power, that's the same thing as this, 1 divided by that base to the fifth power. And then we know that this is the same thing as 1 over negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, okay. And I'm going to figure out my signs first. Negative times a negative is a positive. Negative times the negative times a negative is a positive. And then a negative. So a positive times a negative is a negative. Okay, okay. We know it's 1 over. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. So there is our lovely answer. And if you got it right, great job. Okay, on to this one. Let's see how you did. Ooh, this one's the tricky one. It's trying to be a tricky little trickster. Trickster McGee. That's this problem's name, Trickster McGee. Okay, so let's figure it out. Remember, this is negative here. Only the base is 2, not that negative. That negative is like negative 1, right? Times 1 over the base 2 to the fifth power. Okay, which is the same thing as, it's just going to be negative 1 times 1, which is negative 1. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, equals negative 1 over, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. So if you got all 4 of those right, you did a wonderful job, and I'll see you in a little bit for example 3.